Hello guys, I'm Abdullah. I'm a mechatronics engineer. Today I'm gonna explain the most important concepts about calculus mathematics. The first concept I will explain is function. Function is a value of one variable quantity, say y, depends on the value of another variable quantity which we often called x or t or any other variable. So variable x is known as independent variable, while as variable y is known as dependent variable, which depends on variable x. The second, the second concept I will explain is domain, is the value of x. You know, it's independent variable, which makes y definite. Range is the third concept in calculus. Range is the values of y for which value of domain for each value of domain which make y is exist. The first rule I will discuss today is any polynomial function, its domain equal real numbers minus infinity to infinity. Let's see. First example. First example, f of x equal x squared. You know, it's a polynomial. It's a polynomial function. The domain for any polynomial function equal minus infinity to infinity. You know, it's the same as real numbers. The range, you know, square of x is equal square of x is equal 0 to infinity. So the range of x squared is 0 to infinity. Take a look here. Here is 0 and here infinity. The second function I will explain, f of x equal x squared minus 2x plus 1. This is also polynomial function. You know, every polynomial function gonna be its domain gonna be minus infinity to infinity, all real numbers. 0, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. You know, x minus 1 all square equal 0. I need to know the zeros of the function, the value of x, which makes this function equal 0. X equal 1. When x equal 1, this function gonna be 0. So its domain is minus infinity to infinity. And its range gonna be from 0 to infinity. Let's substitute 0 here. 0 minus 1 minus 1 square equal 1. Let's substitute, for example, 1 here. 1 minus 1, 0, 0 square equals 0. So the minimum value for this function is 0, and when x equal infinity, infinity minus 1, infinity, infinity square equal infinity, so the range from 0 to infinity. Let's let's discuss the second rule. Any rational function, its domain equal real numbers without zeros of denominator. Let's see here this example. This is a rational function. That is, the zeros of denominator is 0. When x equals 0, this function gonna be infinity. So the domain is equal minus infinity to infinity without 0, because 1 divided by 0 is indefinite value. So the domain is minus infinity to infinity without 0. What about the range? The range for this rational function is minus infinity to infinity, because when I approach to 0 from right, it's gonna equal positive infinity. When I approach to 0 from left, it's gonna equal minus infinity. When I push to infinity or minus infinity, this function equals 0. So the range is minus infinity to infinity without 0, because I'm not gonna reach 0. I'm approaching to 0, but I'm not gonna reach to 0. Because infinity, I'm approaching to infinity, but I can reach to infinity. So let's discuss the third rule. Any square root function, its domain equal values of x which make the function under square root larger than or equal 0. Because there is no square root for negative numbers. Let's see this example. For example, f of x equal square root of x. This function is x under the square root. So this function should be larger or equal 0. So the domain is infinity to 0. Any minus number is not allowed here because there is no square root for any minus number. What about the range? The range for this function gonna be 0 to infinity, because x, I'm sorry, there is something error here. 0 should be here. Into infinity. The domain from 0 to infinity and the range from 0 to infinity. Let's discuss this question. F of x equals square root of function 1 minus x squared. This function should be larger or equal 0. I'm gonna solve this equation. I moved x squared here. X squared. We should take square root here and square root here. So plus or minus 1 larger or equal x. We simplify the equation here. X should be larger minus 1 and smaller than 1 to make this one positive number or 0. Make this equation equal positive number or 0. So the domain is minus 1 to 1. When x equals 0, the f of 0 equal 1, and when x equal minus 1 or 1, the function gonna be 0. So 0, the range from 0 to 1. Let's discuss the last question. Let's make sure this equation is correct. Our answer is correct. Let's move to this one. GeoGebra. This application is called GeoGebra to show you the graph for any function. For example, square root 1 minus x square. The graph gonna be like this. So the domain from minus 1 to 1 and the range from 0 to 1. So my answer is correct. Let's move to the last question today. I'm gonna discuss g of t equal 2 divided by 2t squared minus 16. Let's find the zeros of the denominator. T equal plus or minus 4. When limit t approach to infinity, this is gonna be 0. When limit t approach to minus infinity, 2 divided by t squared minus 16 equals 0. Because infinity minus 16, infinity 2 divided by infinity equals 0. When limit t approach for minus 4 from right, when I push for something from right, it's gonna be larger. So for gonna be larger, here square gonna be smaller than minus 16, so equal minus infinity. When I approach to minus 4 from left, 2 divided by t squared minus 16 equal infinity. Because when I push from left, it's gonna be larger in minus, square gonna be positive, so 2 divided by positive number equal infinity. Limit t approach to 4 from right. From right is gonna larger than 4, so 2 divided by 4 squared minus 16 equal infinity. Limit t approach to 4 from left, it's gonna be smaller than 4, so t is smaller than 4 minus 16, 2 divided by minus number equal minus infinity. So the domain equal minus infinity to infinity without zeros of denominator, without plus or minus 4. The range is gonna be from minus infinity to infinity without 0 here, because I'm not gonna reach 0. I'm approaching to infinity or minus infinity, but I'm not gonna reach infinity. So the answer is minus infinity to infinity without 0. Thank you guys. Don't forget to do like and subscribe in my channel. Thank you.